Today, good morning to everyone, or rather, it's already afternoon. I've gathered all the facts about the attack on St. Petersburg, on that very corvette, and today I'll tell you all about it. Moreover, once again, my idea is confirmed, which I have expressed more than once. The wheel of violence keeps turning. Sometimes Ukraine is bombed, sometimes Russia is bombed. There's no sign of peace and people are suffering. There's no sign of peace yet, but let's hope that something will change in the foreseeable future. Before we start, I'll show you a person who explains why Ukrainians are being mobilized. Quite successfully, I must say. About 30,000, I think, they were planning to mobilize per month. But foreigners whom they wanted to attract for money aren't coming. I think the answer will surprise many.
They're catching us, but they're not buying these foreigners by the trainload, by the plane, and sending them to the front.
Why aren't you buying foreigners by the trainload, by the plane, and sending them to the front? Some guy is asking another guy. If anyone knows who they are, please write in the comments. Because they can't be bought, they're people. That's not how it works. Very funny, they can't be bought because they're people. But when it comes to foreigners, meaning Ukrainians, oh, forget them. They're not people. They're something completely different. They're just a military resource, an economic resource, a financial resource, any kind of resource. But foreigners can't be bought. Well, just look at the military face, let's say, the exhausted look of this person. And yes, really, what is there to talk about? Because they are people, foreigners are people. Now let's get directly to the topic we're discussing today, which is the attack on St. Petersburg, and it's a very strong one. So here's the feed, and you can't really call it a pro-Ukrainian resource. It says here that air defense shot down 59 drones in the Leningrad region. What is known about the attempt by the Ukrainian armed forces to attack St. Petersburg? Local residents say that there was a loud rumble heard everywhere. According to reports on social media, sounds similar to loud explosions are accompanied by noticeable vibrations that are felt in homes and furniture in apartments. Well, in general, that's a very convoluted way of describing a real explosion, because there were explosions and there are consequences. Lenta probably can't publish photos and videos of what happened, but concerned citizens, again from Russia, not from Ukraine, posted all this footage, so now we'll take a look at it. The only thing, let's read further. It says that Ukraine attacked the region with 59 drones according to the governor of the region. Plus, as of now, according to him, all the drones have been destroyed by air defense systems. Here we also see information from another source that Ukrainian drones attacked St. Petersburg on the day of the opening of the Economic Forum. Well, it's not for nothing, right, that this date was chosen, the day of the opening of the Economic Forum. This is a very well-known event. It was held before, it's being held now, and quite famous people attend it, and by the way, Putin is supposed to speak at it. That's why it's clear that Ukraine was aiming for a demonstrative, let's say, strike so that the guests of this forum would see this smoke. Several people were injured, reports say, and St. Petersburg Governor Alexander Beglov has commented. Some facilities were likely damaged by downed drones. Honestly, it's tough to comment when one person says everything was shot down and another says things were damaged. But over St. Petersburg, you can see a huge column of smoke rising here. It's visible from different parts of the city. According to the Telegram channel Astra, as a result of the drone attack, the St. Petersburg oil terminal caught fire. It's one of the largest Russian terminals. In terms of handling liquid cargo in the Baltic region, here you can see where it's located. This is, of course, open information. Here you can see the consequences themselves, what's burning and where. And then the following is explained. An air raid alert was also declared in Leningrad Oblast on the night of June 3rd. And the head of the region, Alexander Drozdenko, reported that 59 drones were shot down over the oblast, which I also read. Then, that a corvette was also hit. The one that, as far as I remember, was escorting an oil tanker. And it's on fire, that very tanker. Not the tanker, but the corvette. Let's first take a look here at St. Petersburg. You can see smoke here too. That is, there's a lot of smoke. Something really big is burning. Most likely these are oil refineries. Then, the corvette itself, here is the moment of impact shown. The Ukrainian drone hits the corvette, Boyki. Here the ship itself is shown, along with the moment it was hit. So most likely there were two strikes, one and then a second one as a follow-up, so to speak. That's how things are. And there's also another video. Again, this is most likely that same Corvette burning. This footage was also posted online by someone. Here are these two columns of smoke. So, most likely these are the consequences of the strike from those two drones. Well, that's how things are. The attacks are ongoing on both sides. Both sides exchange curses, accusations, and discuss a ceasefire that has never happened and likely won't soon. This will continue for a long time. This could go on for another couple of years, but we can all see the results. The economic situation in both countries is getting worse and worse. In Ukraine, there's complete dependence on external aid, and in Russia, these oil refineries have a very strong impact. And later, by the way, we'll talk more about how much of an impact they have. There's also a statement from the Russian Ministry of Defense. They stated that over 350 drones were shot down overnight, specifically on June 3rd. Not only St. Petersburg was attacked, the Tambov region was also attacked, specifically the Progress factory, as well as the Smolensk region. Unfortunately, there were casualties. 2 firefighters died. Again, utility workers and emergency responders, you could say, suffer the most. In both Ukraine and Russia, firefighters and rescue workers are often caught in second drone strikes on places that have already been hit once. And these people who heroically, I would say, fulfill their duty, they die, they lose their health, and they suffer. Well, anyway. Let's take a look. Here you can see the Progress plant. It produces equipment. It manufactures control systems for aviation and missile technology. It was attacked and is burning in Tambov, Michurinsk. Here you can also see footage of this fire. So I don't know how serious the damage is, of course, but the fire there is not small. And the Smolensk region was attacked. In the Yershichi municipal district, as a result of the attack and debris, 2 emergency ministry employees were killed. Again, and local residents were injured. Then further, there's nothing good on the external, let's say, front either. That is, Trump continues to quarrel with Iran. An interesting story about how he communicated with Benjamin Netanyahu. He captured some critical fortress in southern Lebanon, and this happened during negotiations and a ceasefire with Iran. Iran canceled the ceasefire, and Trump, furious, called that same Netanyahu and said, "What the hell are you doing?" But in English it sounds even ruder. And now the war between the US and Iran continues. It seems that once again this fragile and flimsy ceasefire has been torn to shreds, just ripped apart. So the US and Iran have exchanged strikes again. The operation of Kuwait International Airport has been suspended. And you could say without any guesswork or reading tea leaves that oil prices will keep rising and accordingly the cost of petroleum products will go up as well. The United States Central Command stated that American forces intercepted missiles launched by Iran at Kuwait and Bahrain. According to the US military, on the night of the 3rd, Iran launched 2 ballistic missiles at Kuwait. They did not reach their target or were destroyed in flight. Well, it's unlikely that a missile would just break up in flight on its own, of course. Most likely they were shot down. Well, and the American military in self-defense carried out strikes on an Iranian ground control center located on an island, on Keshem Island. Accordingly, the IRGC stated that they carried out a strike. Basically, they're bombing each other, making statements and saying all sorts of things. Again, there's nothing good about this. As for petroleum products and their prices, the situation has already reached a critical point. Again, the situation with that very oil has already led to restrictions on gasoline sales at gas stations in the Belgorod and Kursk regions of Russia. In several districts of the Belgorod region, Rosneft gas stations have stopped pouring AI-92 gasoline into canisters. At gas stations, they refuse to fill up, citing an internal ban as the reason. On top of that, they also refuse, well, that's according to the locals, so if anyone actually lives there, by the way, let us know if that's true or not. In Crimea, they say it's true. There really are lines at the gas stations, limits and all that. According to the locals, at the gas stations, they refuse to fill cars up to a full tank. Accordingly, the same restriction applies. And in the Kursk region, as reported by the residents of this area, at Rosneft gas stations in the region, they refuse to fill more than 20 liters of 95 octane into cars and do not pour 92 octane into canisters. Now it's the Minister of Economic Development, not just a local resident. And the Minister of Economic Development and Industry of the Belgorod region, Maxim Gusev, confirmed that at one of the gas station chains they have temporarily stopped dispensing fuel into canisters. The company itself stated that this is for safety reasons. But by the way, yes, if drones are flying around, then what canisters are we talking about? If you spill a little somewhere, well, I think that's actually true. But he stated that refueling vehicles with all types of fuel is being carried out in full and without any restrictions. However, there are restrictions in the Luhansk People's Republic, and here it was announced that due to increased demand for fuel, a decision was made to limit the sale of AI-92, AI-95 gasoline and diesel fuel, and some other types as well. So once again, there is a fuel crisis not only around the world, but also in certain CIS countries. Interestingly, for now, it seems that other countries don't have such a crisis, but if this continues, I think the prices for all of this will skyrocket. That means food prices will go up too, there will be inflation, all those things we talked about earlier. In general, life is going on somehow and we urgently need peace. And it seems like people are already talking about it. And in Ukraine, he told me yesterday that Zelensky has given orders to end the war by winter. How true that is, again, as far as I can tell, they're not all that interested. I have a video of Schmut, that's his last name, not an insult. And this Chmut, he's the head of the foundation, I think it's called Come Back Alive, which collects, well, I don't know about now, but before they didn't collect billions. He says that these are cordons. Cordon. It's the 91st lesson, soon we'll get to someone like I to Rupa, and greetings to everyone.
The lesson. Do you believe that at the level of houses we have Taney, and at the power level, you see the solution to the whole conflict like that?
At the diplomatic level, he says no, but when it comes to a forceful solution, yes. Well, if he went with his descendants, I don't know, to that very front to defend Ukraine's interests, then he would talk differently, I think. Most of the military personnel I personally know say that nobody wants war anymore, we want peace. And the only ones who keep fighting are those responsible for drones, of which thousands are needed. Again, with supplies worth millions of dollars and fortifications where, let's say, billions of hryvnias are already being siphoned off. I don't know about the dollars, but I heard a story where, out in the middle of nowhere, they say, start at the fence and dig till lunch, a trench out there in the field. Of course, even the trench won't really help much. But dig! Because they pay for the mileage, not the depth or the width, just the mileage. So, dig it, you dig 1,000 kilometers, you get your $1 billion. I'm exaggerating, of course, but that's about how it is. And that's why all these chmuts and people like them want war. They want it to continue, borders, and all sorts of other things.
It seems like it's possible, of course, if the Russians don't start fighting effectively, because so far they haven't been fighting effectively.
A military expert, just amazing. Alright, I'll show you another amazing expert here. This is just crazy. Well, Kalesa, I think you all know him. This person has already reached the peak of his military career. He decided to congratulate Ukraine on Mother's Day and ended up covering himself in mud. He messed up his hairstyle a little, although his hair still shines. Well, this is just some kind of, I would say it's like KVN, but honestly, it's better not to remember KVN anymore. We'll remember all this KVN plus Jenka, mom, grandma, sisters, but not him.
Жінки, мами, бабусі, сестри, дружини, дівчата.
Well, just look at this well-fed face, a bit smeared, a little dirty. I can just imagine someone splashing a bit of dirty water from their fingers onto his face, or maybe it's some kind of expensive makeup so he doesn't ruin his look. And again, this military-style haircut, well, I'm joking, of course, it's not military at all. They showed people from the front lines, exhausted men with sunken faces and cheeks, even the young ones had wrinkles. You can see everything right away in their eyes, but here comes this Halessa with those exaggerated facial expressions and a bit of dirt splashed on, starting to talk about what's going on. And they even exposed these characters, this Halissa guy, and there's also a big-headed one. They even found the place where they shoot their damn trench videos. Now I'll dig myself a trench there. Now I can also splash some mud on myself and say that I'm a powerful leader. Alright, oh, I removed myself, sorry. Maybe it's even better this way, I don't know. Write in the comments, maybe it's better to do it without me like this. There we go, just perfect. So this character claims that he's a soldier, but actually they're filming the video in Korchevatoye, which is the Holosivske district of Kiev. They even say they've dug trenches there because there's a place to mess around, well, in front of the camera. You get into the trench. You sit down and pretend. You can even set off some firecrackers there. Well, I don't know. He could have at least gone somewhere where there's an actual front. But that's how it is. Well, that's it, just like that.
Happy Mother's Day. Today, the guys and I are in a bit of an interesting situation.
He claims he's at war, fighting somewhere, but look at him. This is what a real soldier looks like. I'm sure there are viewers on my channel who are soldiers, officers, real combat veterans. Well, tell me your opinion about this character with his well-fed face and rosy ears telling us that he's here with the guys on the front line, that they're right here.
They had to look for 10 shell casings just to show them on camera.
They cut the video, I don't know, maybe he swore there.
But they didn't find the ticket, just this one.
It really looks like the front line. In general, it's just the front, not a bush they found, but it's absolutely impossible to tolerate this character any longer, so I suggest we don't watch him. Now what? Now we also have some information about veterans. Now, if real veterans come back from the front, not these barbershop guys, although of course they'll assign themselves a pension too, and probably a pretty good one, I think, the amounts will be such that an ordinary person can only dream of them. But there is a real problem. We're told that when real frontline veterans actually return from the front, supporting them will cost 7% of GDP. These are just people who have returned from the front. How much will it cost to detain people with health problems, people with disabilities, just pensioners and other socially vulnerable groups as they are called? Well, here it could probably reach up to 10% of GDP, but just imagine 10% of GDP is being spent on social needs. In normal countries it's not like that, it's lower there. Veteran policy in Ukraine, we're told, can't be reduced to a loud statement about creating a specialized ministry and appointing a minister as a deputy. There is a powerful economic dimension, and its cost for the budget will only increase every year. This was stated by former presidential advisor Oleg Ustenkov. He draws attention to the following. According to international experience, the issue of veterans reaches its peak. Financial, psychological, and political issues peak about 5 years after the end of the war. That's why we need to think about this. Medical care for veterans, separately for those who became disabled, rehabilitation, retraining, prosthetics, health resort treatment, and housing. Plus providing veterans with all these benefits and social payments as well, not just in major cities. They'll build a ramp at a crossing on Catastrophic. And we're talking about building crossings for people with health issues who are called handicapped in English so they can cross in a wheelchair without any problems. And he writes that there will be about 1.5 million veterans. Just imagine that. That's $15 billion every year. Where is Ukraine going to get that kind of money? And after the war, I'm more than sure, well, they'll cut off any help. And Europe will say, yes, thank God. How's that? Good riddance, Kuba or Lexi? As the Ukrainians say. So there will be 7 of the current GDP, $15 billion will be paid out from who knows where. Maybe they'll raise taxes. Or maybe they'll ask for loans somewhere again at a huge interest rate. It's hard to say. But the fact that this will happen is absolutely true. So, what now? Let's take a look at the powerful leaders. Who should we start with? By the way, we haven't seen Kurbanita in a while. But what can you do because things aren't really going in the right direction? Not at all, actually. You see, because things aren't really going in that direction. By the way, have you noticed she's disappeared? From the information field, from the public space? Kurbanit is gone. I used to show Kurbanit all the time, but now she's not there. What's happening? Where did Kurbanit go? Please don't lose Kurbanit. So here we have, for example, a bichitsa from Beitsitsa like this. Look at this Beitsitsa. I'll immediately put on my powerful glasses to protect myself from the piercing patriotic radiation. The guy in the sweater, or rather in the vest, is sleeping, and the Beitsitsa with keratin straightening and traces of surgeries is telling the following.
We'll be pushing from our side at the front.
He says we'll be pushing at the front. We plowed, me and the tractor. Imagine what kind of pressure she'll put on the front. It's like they recently showed some other woman too. And she was saying that she started by polishing cartridges, the shiny ones. So
here are Russian facilities according to a...
What's interesting, does she mean a beauty salon? Will she buy it all or what?
We will strike, and perhaps this will allow us to show Russia that it needs to stop. This will not end the war. Ukrainian society needs to understand this.
Yeah, Ukrainian society still needs to be ready for the worst, because that's what Katerina, I think that's her name, Rushuk, said. It will just be temporary, Rushuk.
Це буде просто тимчасовою перервою.
And then fight again, Katerina, right? Well, everyone will go to the trenches with Katerina with that character on the left.
We caught our breath, rearmed, and waited for another episode like that.
Quality is so-so, in general, to paraphrase a famous leader, quality is so-so. But overall, that's how things are, meaning there are problems everywhere, and the military campaign is scaling up everywhere too. People are suffering, people are dying. Weapons, arms dealers, politicians, and people like Katerina keep making money, including Chmut, while people are suffering. Is this good? Of course not. Of course it's bad. Is this what we dreamed of when we were kids? Of course not. What do you dream about now? What do kids dream about? Naturally, not about crawling somewhere in the dirt like that character who sprayed himself, but about having mom and dad alive, and for everyone to be okay. And for real birds to fly in the sky, swallows, swifts, or at least sparrows, not all these drones, rockets, and everything else. Goodbye, everyone.
Of course, it's unfair from Ukraine's point of view that some men are fleeing the country, doing nothing there, getting money, while other men are trying to earn a living, feed their families, or fight even harder on the front lines. And the fact that our state hasn't paid attention to this for many years says that, well, I don't know, maybe someone in the government was just interested in having these people flee.